Hello guys, welcome back. Today we're going to work in the construction of some triangles. So let's get started. The first thing that I'm going to do is to have the algebraic view in here so that I can follow the things that I'm writing. The first thing that we're going to do is to build an equilateral triangle. And as you know, an equilateral triangle has a feature that is that all the sides are equal. So the first thing that we're going to use is the segment with given length. I'm going to build an equilateral triangle that has all sides equal length of 8. So this one I'm going to make it with color green. So I'm going to click in here and move. Click over the segment. I'm going to make it green. I'm going to move it a little. Scroll down. And for building this, we got to make sure that the length they have the same. So for doing that, we're going to use the function compass. We're going to click over A and B. We are going to center this first circle in A. And again, the function compass, we are going to click over A and then on B. And this time we center on B. Then we are going to have an intersection. So we're going to mark that intersection. And finally, we're going to build a segment that goes from B to C. We're going to make that green, and one that it goes from C to A. Now, if you pay attention to the function algebra, all the segments have the same length. That means that we have an equilateral triangle because they have equal sides. Next thing that we're going to do in this triangle is to measure their angles. But before we do that, we're going to remove the circle so we don't see them anymore. And now we're going to measure the angles. For measure the angles, we got to take into account the concept that we are measuring in, again, counterclockwise. That means that we're going to go against the hands of the clock in this movement. So for doing that, we're going to click over angle. We're going to click on the point C and we go against the clockwise. So then in B and then in A. So we got our first angle that is 60 degrees. Now we click on B, A, and C. We got our second angle, and then on A, C, and B. Now we got our third angle. I'm going to move this to make it more visible because this angle is not that visible. So you can see it a little better. And here we are using Greek letters to name them. Okay, so this is our first triangle that is an equilateral triangle. You can see that we have equal sides, and if we go to the angles, we can see that they are also equal. They have the same measurement. So this is our first triangle. Now we're going to build our second triangle. So now for the construction of our second triangle, which is going to be an isosceles triangle, we got to take into account the definition. And it says that, well, it is said that an isosceles triangle has two equal sides and one that is going to be different. So the first thing that we got to start making is to build our first side, which is the one that is going to be different. So we're going to use this spacing here. I'm going to make let's say a 9 side, but this one I'm going to make it, I'm going to use another color for this one, so I'm going to use red. And we got one side. Now we wanted to have the other two sides that they are going to be equal in length. So for doing that, what we're going to do is to build a line segment that it has a length given that is different to 9. So I'm going to use, let's say, 12. I got to change the coloring here to make it red. So for moving this segment and building the triangle on here, what we're going to use is the function compass. So this is like I was measuring with my compass this side, and I'm going to place it the center in here. I'm going to do the same, but this time the center of my circle is going to be in here, in D. And again, you got an intersection that is going to be in here. We're going to mark this intersection, and we are going to use again the function segment. In this case, I'm going to change the color and go from E to H and H to D. And then you have it. And as you can see, at the beginning I decided that this one was going to be 9, and then I choose that this side and this one, that they're going to complete the triangle, were in length they had a length of 12. So as you can see, this length is in here. We no longer need these circles, so that's why we're not going to show this in our construction, and neither we need to show the points F and G. So I'm going to move them, and I'm going to take away this segment. I'm going to erase it. So it's no longer in here because I don't need it anymore. So remember that when something like this happens, you can go back by using the redo arrow. So I'm going to move the point G because I don't need it, so I'm not going to show that. That's it. This is our isosceles triangle. Remember that this is a triangle. Yeah, we are going to name it by using the size. We said that this triangle is one that has two equal sides and one that is different. And if we check the angles, we're going to measure the angles of this triangle. Again, this is counterclockwise. We go from H to E and D, and we have our first angle. Then from E to D, finally H, we got our second angle. And then from D, H, finally E, now we got our third angle. So I'm going to move this in here so you can see them better. And I'm going to change the color of these angles so we can differentiate them from the ones that we already have. I'm going to make them red as well as it was in the figure. And finally this one. So now you can see that we got two equal sides, but also two equal angles, one different side and one different angle. This is our isosceles triangle. Finally, we're going to build an scalene triangle. So let's go to it. So now for building our third triangle, that is going to be an scalene triangle. Remember that this scalene triangle is a triangle that has all different sides, and the internal angles, they are going to be also different. The thing is that we're going to start with a segment with given length. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to place the first segment in here, but I'm going to use another color. In this case, it's going to be, let me make it purple. So I'm going to write down a segment that is going to be, let's say 10. This is going to be my first segment of my triangle, but the other two I'm going to make them in here. So I'm going to use maybe a segment with length, I don't know, could be one like 6. A segment with the given length. Let's make it with 6 of length for the length. Let's make another segment. This one could be, or could have, maybe a length of 8. And let's see what happened. Now what we're going to do is to move this one and this one in here in these corners. And for doing so, what we're going to use is the function compass. Let's start with this one. We can center that in J or in I. Let's center this in J. And again, use the function compass. but you're not going to use the segment KL, but you're going to use the segment N and E. So as you can see, we got an intersection. If we don't have an intersection in here, it means that the lengths that we're using, they're not allowing us to make a triangle, so you had to try with another ones. But in this case, we got an intersection, which means that we can build a triangle. So we go from the point I to Q and Q to J, and this is our scalene triangle. I want you to notice something that is interesting, and that it would be that the segments that are in here KL they must be equal to the segment OJ. So if we look for them, KL and OJ, they have the same length. As you can see in here, I'm going to point out this and this one. They have the same length. And also the MN that has a length of 8 is in here. It's the same length of OI or IO, which is the same. So now what we're going to do is to remove our circles. And finally, we're going to measure the angles. As long as we don't need the segments, we're going to hide them. So we're going to click on them. And we're going to make them disappear. And MN as well. So you can also remove the points. So KL, MN, we don't have to see those points anymore. Finally, what we're going to do is to measure the angles, the internal angles. So remember, we go counterclockwise, OJI, JIO, and finally IO. J. And it turns out that this is an special triangle because it also has an angle that is 90 degrees. But as you can see, it's an scalene triangle because the first thing, if we talk about the sides are not equal, any of the sides, and if we check the angles, all angles are different. Remember that here we are using Greek letters, so this is the way that you build the three kinds of triangle or three types of triangle that we can have. Thank you very much for paying attention, and that's it for today, guys.